In line with the nationwide campaign to eliminate violence against children, today we are here to discuss online violence. And to enrich the discussion, we have Councillor Dawadraba from DYS MOE, ICT Officer Sonam Chuki from BT CERT MOIC, and Senior Program Officer Kile NCWC. Thank you so much, La. Online violence, it's a very new thing, at least in our country, Mola. So let's first understand what is online violence.
Thank you very much, La. I think this issue, when it comes to the child protection, online violence is something that is new, that in these times, because of the globalization, and every now and then our children go online. And for that purpose, there are a lot of opportunities that children can ignite their creativeness, and then broaden their horizons all over the world. But at the same time, they poses a lot of serious risks to it. It's like cyberbullying and peer-to-peer violence, and then other forms of violence such as grooming. So for that purpose, we are here to discuss on these issues and what we really need to look into this issue, and then what we can prevent from this online violence.
Yes. So did you want to add something to it?
Yes, if I may complement what Sir just mentioned. So online violence is any type of violence that happens physically, like for example, physical violence, peer-to-peer violence, bullying. So now that is more perpetuated by something that happens on the internet. So it can happen on any kinds of platforms, for example, social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram, and messaging apps like WeChat, WhatsApp, and also on gaming platforms as well, something that we do not expect as such, because we as parents, we have accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and all of those. But we fail to notice that risks can also arise from online gaming platforms. For example, there was this game called the Blue Whale Challenge back in 2016. It was quite prevalent, where the game challenged users and children to commit self-harm, to slit their hands or commit suicide. And it went around for, the challenge was for about 50 days. So for every day they were given an additional challenge. So these are the kind of online risks that we have to be aware of. And also, in addition to the online grooming risk, people, abusers, they pretend to be someone else on the internet. So that is quite a risk, because they make fake accounts, and then they create relationship with teenagers that are naive online, and then that leads to abuse and subsequently other kinds of abuses.
There's also been a recent case in the news, Mola, where one of these, I think she was a teenager, she met someone older, and he attempted to rape her. And so it is quite prevalent, Meba, but we somehow have managed to, we have failed to talk about it as much. Yes. And I'm glad we're doing this right now. Now let's find out who are these perpetrators. You've managed, it could be someone pretending to be somebody else. But usually, who are these perpetrators, and who are the survivors or the victims to online violence?
I think when it comes to the online violence, it can be anyone. It can be between the peer-to-peer. It can be someone who is elder, and then this can actually take it to all over the world, where because it's going online, and then anybody could, not only in Bhutan, that children may be subject to such online abuses and then violences, but it can happen all over the world. For that purpose, we have also other programs that intend to protect our children, which the BTCERT is also working on it. And like you said, like when it comes to the online use of social medias and the other forms of platforms where children can use, so starting from including gamings and others. There are a lot of things that hate message and then xenophobic messagings that actually take place, which really hampers our children, especially from the emotional aspects. Now, just to cite on some of the studies that the Ministry of Information and Communications, in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, National Statistics Bureau, National Commission for Women and Children, the Royal Education Council, we did one survey for the children between the ages of 12 to 17. And from that, we found that almost more than 81% of the children have access to these smartphones and other gadgets. And then on an average, they spend around 1 to 2 hours daily. Now they are into this world, and then due to the COVID, now we are shifting to the online classes and other platforms that we have to now adopt. And then for that purpose, I think it is very important for us to understand our children, what are the goods and what are the bads, what we need to do to prevent such online violences.
Yes. And talking about, especially during the pandemic, we had to make the shift of teaching our children through online platforms. Well, how is MOE, Ministry of Education and DYS in particular dealing with this issue of online violence?
As far as I'm concerned, we did not receive so many cases of that online violence. But as a counselor, I think personally for me, I have received 2 to 3 cases of online violence, which is actually a cyberbullying case, I think. So it happened to be all these 3, I think, they are girls from different schools, and then a friend of them, he was actually trying to blackmail that girl if she do not send all these nude pictures, then her profile will be uploaded in Facebook, and then so that was the little cyberbullying. Then I said, okay, I just suggested her to maybe report this to either police or may inform parents, and then either block him. So apart from that, now because of the online classes, we have not received any data or any cases of violence.
Yes. Because, I think the country as a whole, the older generation, it's new to media. This digital world is very new, and even parents can easily get scammed. So during a time like that, where even the parents themselves are learning to be safe on the internet, how do we make sure that internet is a safe space for the children?
So in schools, actually, we have this, in our curriculum itself, we actually have this media class, and media literacy is also happening. And it's in some schools, we have also media club, where the safe use of online sites actually it's taught, and then how to keep themselves safe from online scammers or maybe from strangers, for that online violence. So these things are actually taught. Yes. Online violence is actually happening because I feel it's happening because this is happening online. So many times the person behind that online violence is always not very strangers, but I think it's known people. So they actually hide their identity, and then they want to they may be having some grudge or maybe having some issues with that person, but because they want to hide their identity, so it's happening online. So that's my take on that.
Yes.
One thing that we can intervene is to monitor. As a parent, I think we can monitor the use of the gadgets.
Yes.
How many hours in a day, and what sites is my daughter or my son visiting, the kind of sites, and then the parental control in that device. I think that is also plays a very bigger role in controlling social media.
So regarding parents, there was a study that was done by the Bhutan Media Foundation back in 2020. So that study it was done on social media, Anila, and the study found out that on an average around 163 minutes were spent online for that is just not just the children, the adults included. So which is around 12% higher than the global average spent on online. So we also need to be aware that parents are also simultaneously online surfing on the net. So at the moment, in addition to awareness, like the Ministry of Education, we also have, in the future, we are also planning on having guidelines separately for parents and educators. And also coming back to the survey, it also found out that only 1 out of 3 parents continuously monitor their child's online activities. So which is also a concern. It is important to note that the parents has to, you know, if not all the time, on a routine basis, check what services they are using, what apps they are using, and the history, be able to check all those.
True, true. I think a parent has to be well equipped, a caretaker, or even teachers have to be well equipped to navigate themselves through a child's phone to see the history and who they've interacted with. What are the main risks of a child going through online violence? I ask this question because a lot of the times we think online violence it's virtual, so it's not physical. But like Sonam pointed out rightly, it is basically physical violence, emotional violence, all the types of violence now easily available on your phone, through your phone. So it poses a huge risk. So what are these risks?
Let me first cite on the National Child Online Safety and Protection Study. In that, about more than 57% of girls out of the 2,381 samples, which are about children between the 12 to 17 years. It's like they meet strangers online. And also like about 38% of the students, they don't have restrictions to use digital gadgets and then smartphones, which I feel that it is correlated with, there is a correlation between what Sonam have actually mentioned about the Media Foundation study, where a parent spent almost almost higher than the global standard of using the smartphones and going online.
So I think it's similar to all kinds of physical violence. So a child goes through kind of a depression, sort of anxiety. The child might have anxiety. They might skip school and they might behave differently as compared to their normal behavior. So these are the kind of issues that they might face in case of violence.
It appears from the stats that it's mostly girls who get cyberbullied or who are targets to online violence. Is that true?
As per our survey that was conducted in 2019, the survey that Sir just mentioned, the targeted gender was the females, yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes, so the majority of the victims were females.
Yes. Now, let's say if a parent finds out that his or her child is going through, is suspecting that is a victim of online violence, what should the parent do? What is the right path to report or to?
So, because the online violence is quite a new area for the country as such, we do not have proper mechanisms and process in place to report and all of those. But the NCWC, because they already deal with the children and online, the physical violence and all kinds of other violences. So we would recommend the parents to report to the NCWC and also report to to the cybercrime division of the police. So if they, because I'm from the Ministry of Information Communications, and we have a division looking after cybersecurity, which is the Bhutan Computer Incident Response Team. So the child online protection is just a component of what we are currently doing. So because we deal with all kinds of cybersecurity, we do not have the mechanism in place currently where the children can report to us. But if in case there are cases where the children want to talk to us, they are always open to come to us, and then we will try to coordinate between the police and the NCWC as well.
Yes. I am very much interested to learn more about the cybersecurity division at MOIC. So what are some ways we as a country can make sure our children are safe?
So when we talk about online safety, we always think there's a technical solution to it. But I think it always comes back to how you communicate with your children and how you monitor them online.
Yes.
Because even if you have all the parental controls in place, the children can always have, they will always make sure that they bypass this controls and do something else outside your home or your school. So we always advise the parents and the children to at least, be aware of the online risk, and there are predators online who can take advantage of your children. And also be aware of sharing your passwords and keeping your profile private and not public, because now they can have access to all of your pictures online because it's all public and it's out in the open. So anyone who has access to your online profile can just save your picture and create a fake account and then, cause abuse.
True.
The initiatives that the ministry is currently taking, the BT Cert, because we are handling, as I mentioned earlier, the cybersecurity for the entire country. We have been creating a lot of awareness for children, because through the findings that was done on the survey, we found that the privacy was a big issue. So we tried to create online content and videos, animation videos for the children, because they tend to watch animation videos more. So in addition to that, we have also created posters and design posters for online safety and send it across to all of the schools, primary schools and high schools, irrespective of private or government schools. Every school in the country, we have sent those posters. And we have additionally also drafted a comic book. Now, the other videos that I was talking about, it focused more on the technical interventions, how they should have passwords, strong passwords, how they should, the do's and don'ts on the technical level. But in the comic, we have also focused on the roles of parents and teachers and how they should support their children in terms of online violence. Also, the BT Cert, in collaboration with the UNICEF and ITU, it's the International Telecommunication Union. So we are in the process of developing a guideline for child online protection. So we are going to focus on 4 different areas: policy, a guideline for children, a guideline for parents and educators, a guideline for policymakers, and the industry. So industry in the sense that might address some of your questions in relation to the telecom providers and how we can block content. Those guidelines are going to be there. So at the moment, we are working on a focus group discussion that is going to happen in September, where we are going to bring in students, a group of students, a group of policymakers, a group of parents and teachers, and then question them, see the gaps and the current scenario, what's happening, and then try to feed into the guidelines. That the guidelines already existing, actually, it's a global guideline, but we are going to localize it now by seeing what is more suitable to the country, what we need to delete and add on to the guidelines. So hopefully it will be out by the end of December.
How have we dealt with online violent cases up until now?
When it comes to the online violences, NCWC have not come through this issue so far, but it is likely that these kind of issues are likely to come across. And whatever the cases that had been reported to the police, I think obviously it will come to the National Commission for Women and Children, where we need to provide support services And to provide that support services, we have to involve other partners such as CSOs and the government agencies, making sure that our children are safe, in terms of going online, and then as well as making sure that whatever the children have suffered through this online violence are treated in a right and appropriate way. So so far we haven't had these issues, but it is likely that these kind of issues are going to come in, and then we are ready to face this issue session.
Yes. And my next question I want to ask Dawa is, you've dealt with children who are getting bullied online. Mm-hmm. So I think the immediate and the right response that you've given to them is to block them. And Mola, talking in general, what advice would you give to children about their online presence?
First thing is, now online violence actually happens when you spend many hours on surfing net and then gadgets. So there's one thing. Other thing is, when they encounter this violent, when they're bullied online, then first thing, the simplest thing that they can do is actually report to their parents. And then maybe if that violent, if that online violence has damaged them very, so it has damaged them psychologically, then maybe if this, based on the severity of cases, if there maybe they can also talk to a counselor or maybe a professional, because you never know what's actually stored in them. You never know what kind of disturbance it has actually caused in their mental state. So it's always wise to talk to a professional counselor if they don't know how to handle that. And as a parent, I think, as I have said, I think it's always very wise to look for with whom their sons and their children are actually chatting, who are their online friends, and keep maybe monitor their screen use. Because if you don't monitor, and if you don't, if a parent doesn't know actually who with whom they are actually chatting or maybe conversing, then it often lands up that there may be scammers or strangers may be giving a very fake promise to their children, who may be thinking it as a very genuine or maybe someone very caring. So it actually what I'm seeing is now those violent cases that has actually come in the media, those people who are actually threatened to call them for a date, and then if they don't turn up, then they want to actually post their nude pictures on Facebook, and these are all actually because these are all actually the grooming process, where actually the perpetrator is actually trying to get hold of that child.
Take control.
So yes, take control of that. So if we can intervene at that level, then all these things can be actually prevented.
I think with the growing distance between a parent and a child, and very less communication between the parent and the child, we end up putting our children in a lot of danger, because they can't confide in us about their friends, about their problems with their friends or boyfriends. But I think this is one clear message that's coming out of this discussion, is that the communication between a child and a parent has to be strong and clear.
As parents, we need to create a culture of support in the house, because even if a certain incident has happened with a child, they need to be comfortable enough to actually talk with their parents and tell them that this happened. So if they have a culture of talking with them and communicating with them properly, then the child might be comfortable enough to report, and to the caregivers and the educators as well.
Yes. And culturally, it's not the trend.
Yeah.
We don't have clear communication with our parents, especially not about our boyfriends or what's happening at school. There's very less communication with us. So I think this is the time where we step up our game as parents, as children. If your children watching this, I think you, both the parent and the child, or the caretaker or caregiver or the guardian, we need to step up our game and know that there has to be clear communication for the child to be safe. Because basically online is a world where both the parent and the child is figuring out what we don't know what is out there. We never know what is out there. And if we don't keep them in check, we're basically risking them being exposed to creeps, pedophiles, and sometimes worse. So let's find out what are some difficulties and challenges when we're dealing with online violence or a child who's been abused online. What are some challenges or difficulties?
I think when it comes to the online violence, there are a lot of issues and challenges for the parents as well as for the child. Now, if that child is the victim of someone who has been sexually exploited or been abused online, means then we cannot imagine how much that child is going through. And then every time they will be suffering from a lot of distress, and then anxiety, and then also develop suicidal ideations. So those are the challenges that, and then the very fact is that children do not come forward to seek help, and that is why it is especially when it comes to the online. I think we need to have a platform where children can freely talk without fear and hesitation, and that is why we need to advocate more on having the helpline such as 1098, that is for the women and child helpline, where children can actually talk to the counselors and then other case managers on these issues, and then speak to them, get their expert opinions, and then that's how they should. It is never wise to keep it within ourselves and then let it die there, because this will actually remain. This kind of issues will remain throughout your life, and then it will never be fine.
Yes, and I think we did brush up on this, but I would like to maybe also find out the different types of online violence. What are some online violences we're talking about?
Especially when it comes to the online violence, one of the most pertinent and then the issue that our children face are cyberbullying, and then also peer-to-peer violence going online, and hate messages and speeches, and then also getting children the opportunity to look into the adult sites. And when we talk about the adult sites and children using the smartphone, according to the Violence Against Children study 2016, we found that majority of the children are exposed to the digital pornographics, and then that if you look at the location, I think it is most of the children who are in the rural areas are getting this opportunity to look into the pornographic images and videos. Now the question is that whether since this has been occurred in the rural areas, the question is that does the parent knows how to protect their phones or not, if they get to know this. These are some of the issues that relies some of the roles and responsibilities on our parents, to making sure that whatever it has been shared in their smartphones through the different types of social medias, it is very important for them to making sure that our children are not exposed to this digital pornographic images and videos.
In addition to these pornographic images, sexual content, do we also consider violence online as online violence? I'm thinking of these violent games, video games, violent videos of children watching violent videos of people fighting. Would we consider those contents as online violence?
Yes, definitely it is, because in that when children play the video games and all, I think there are a lot of hate speech, and then messages, hate messages, and then the used to exchange between those children who are playing online games, which really impacts the emotional development of our children, because there are certain levels that they wanted to attend to, and then that's where children used to quarrel or the fight amongst themselves online, and that's where that really makes our children feel bad, and then they suffer from the anxiety and then other traumatic effects.
In addition to cyberbullying, we also have this term called online grooming. It's a broad term used to describe a tactic that is used by an abuser to manipulate a child online for sexual gains or any of that sort. For example, it can be sending a naked video or a naked photo of a child. Other cybercrime and online violence can also include such as sextortion and stalking, harassment online. All of these can also be a form of violence. It may not lead to violence while chatting online, but eventually it will lead to that, because when we talk about catfishing, because the abusers, they create online fake profiles and then chat with you, and then create a sort of a fake relationship with you, and then eventually they tell you to come to some place, and then that's where the sexual violence or all of those violence happen. So it can be an enabler of sorts.
Wow.
So
there's multitude
yes.
of these memola. And now I'm going to ask, my next question is going to be, I think the answer to which I know, but I think a lot of the viewers out there are wondering, if we know there's so much threat, why isn't the country blocking these sites? Why isn't the country stopping these games from being able to be played here?
That's a very complicated question, and with a very complicated answer, actually. So we did have a talk with the service provider, telecom operators, because they have the websites and all of that hosted in their servers. It's regarding the PUBG game. So we had a series of discussion where we wanted to block PUBG because it's harmful to the kids, but it's not as simple as it sounds. But because even if we create a website, harmful website that kids go on and watch violent content, even if we block that content today, tomorrow there will be another site with another IP address. So it's quite a challenge for the ISPs as well. So it's just it's a cat and mouse race.
Sure. I just thought I should ask this question on behalf of the viewers who are just thinking, why aren't these sites blocked? If we know they're for sure, like maybe Facebook and social media platforms, you gain from it, and it's a risk that everybody has to take. But there are certain websites you think, oh, they can be blocked. So, but I understand, and I just had to get it out of my system.
So similarly, I was just talking about websites and other apps, but in terms of social media as well, all of the chats that are currently happening are happening on Facebook and WhatsApp, all those chatting, messaging apps. But because as a ministry, we do not own Facebook as such, we don't own WhatsApp. So whatever is happening on their platform is guided by their own guidelines. They have their own jurisdiction, so that's not something we have control over. So what we try to do is communicate with the Facebook officials whenever we can. We try to block if it's a hacking site or any of those sorts. So we try to block those content. But apart from that, that's not much that we can do technical side.
Yes. By the time the cases reach to our stakeholders here, the crime has already happened. The loss has already been made. Your child has been exposed to online violence. But this discussion here, we would like to encourage every individual watching the show to prevent this from happening, the online violence against your children. So if we could leave with one advice to our viewers, what would it be, La? We'll start with this.
I think as a child and as a children, it is very important that they should know the risks of online. The children should also learn the tips how to actually use the social media safely. And then using the social media safely is something that is very important. And our parents' responsibility to support our children, guide them, monitor them from time to time is something that is important in this world of globalization. Thank you.
Yes.
At the end of the day, if we need to reduce exposure to online devices, say Nomila, as far as we reduce the exposure to online devices, the vulnerabilities are always less. That's what I think.
Yes, okay.
In order to keep our children safe from online violence, I think first and foremost thing is parents must monitor how and what sites our children are visiting. And the second thing is now, because everything is going online, so I'm just seeing it from the parents' perspective now, because everything is done online. So homework is sent online, all activities are sent online. So we cannot keep our children, we cannot ask them to stay away from using, using gadgets or maybe surfing nets, because every time their homework is sent, it's always through either WeChat or either Telegram. Or so in the pretext of doing homework, they may be landing up surfing different sites. So I think we must also keep note of that. If you're experiencing, especially for the children, if you're experiencing online violence at home, I think it's not very safe to keep quiet, because you need to always reach out, voice out to yourself, talk to your parents, talk to a very close person in your family, or maybe talk to a teacher or a counselor in schools. Things will be always, things will work out if you only voice out, if you only talk, seek help, Sunil. And because you are using online, and if you do not want to disclose your identity, and if you want to seek professional counseling services online, then we have this Sherry Counseling Facebook page. You can log into Sherry Counseling Facebook page and visit our page, and you can send message. Then you'll get in contact with professional counselors who will give you the counseling services, Shunila.
Thank you so much, La. One thing I would like to also add, so that our viewers get to hear this, is that a lot of the times children do not like to speak up about online violences because they have played a part in it too. Maybe the girl has sent some pictures that she's not proud to disclose to the others. I just want our viewers to know that even though sometimes it is a give and take between the child and whoever is luring this child or deceiving this child, the child needs to know that she's a child, and she did this being lured and being deceived, not knowing who the other person is. But that doesn't end. It should never end there. It should never make you feel guilty about how you got trapped in this situation that is not the most pleasant situation. So if you are one of those going through that, you have to first talk to your parents. If you feel like your parents will not be able to receive that well, talk to someone you trust. Could be a relative or could be a counselor in your school. So do that, and the first and the foremost thing is to open up, like our panelist here said. So with that, and I want to thank all of you for coming and talking about this very difficult topic, online violence. Mola, it's very new, it's very difficult, yet we as a country are working towards elimination of violence, especially for this panel, it's elimination of online violence against your children. So with that, thank you for watching. We have finished panel discussion last week on the topic sexual violence. It is up on YouTube, so do check that out. Thank you for watching.